All right, let's jump right in. We all know artificial intelligence is set to change pretty much everything. But to make sure that change is actually for the better, we really need a plan. So today, we're going to break down what it actually takes to build AI that we can trust.
So let's just state the obvious. AI is a transformative technology. I mean, really transformative. But here's the thing. If you look at history, every major tech wave, think the printing press, the internet, it brought massive disruption right along with it. AI is no different. So the question isn't if it's going to be disruptive, but how we're going to manage it.
And that disruption, it's a real double-edged sword. On the one hand, you've got the potential to improve our quality of life in huge ways, create totally new kinds of jobs, and solve some of the world's biggest problems. But on the other hand, it could trigger massive workforce changes, social upheaval, and brand new kinds of threats we've never seen before. So the real trick is, how do we get all of the good stuff while keeping the problematic parts to a minimum?
To even start to answer that, we first have to get really clear on what we're actually dealing with. And that brings us to our first section, separating the sci-fi fears from the very real, fact-based concerns that we need to be tackling right now.
You know, when we talk about the risks of AI, it's so easy to just lump everything together. But it is so important to separate the emotional fears, the killer robots, the super-intelligent AI taking over, from the practical, fact-based concerns that businesses are wrestling with today. Things like biased data, a lack of transparency, system security. These aren't problems for the future. They are here and now challenges.
This quote just nails it. It really gets to the heart of the mindset we need. It's so easy to get spun up on the emotional what-ifs, but our energy is so much better spent tackling the things we can actually solve. Dealing with these fact-based realities, that's the foundation for building AI that's actually helpful and trustworthy.
Let's just tackle one of the biggest fears head-on: jobs. Everyone's worried that robots are coming for their paycheck. So take a look at this number. 300,000. What do you think that is? It's not the number of jobs lost to automation. Nope. It's actually the complete opposite. This is what some people call the Amazon paradox. When Amazon went all in on automating their warehouses with robots, the big fear was, of course, massive layoffs. But the reality? They ended up hiring more people. It just goes to show you that AI isn't necessarily a job killer, it's more of a job category killer. It changes what work looks like, shifting the focus from simply replacing humans to actually augmenting them.
Okay, so if we focus on the right concerns, how do we actually build a system to handle them? Well, that brings us to our second section, the pillars of trust. This is the blueprint for how we move from just talking about these ideas to putting them into practice. Building AI you can trust is like building a house. It happens in layers. It all starts with the foundation, ethical AI. That sets the moral boundaries, the things we just agree we shouldn't do. From there, it's all about execution. Responsible AI is about making sure we build things the right way. Then you need transparent AI to give people visibility into how it works, which then leads to explainable AI, so we can actually understand why a system does what it does. And all of that is held together by the roof, governed AI, the audits, the metrics, the rules that hold the whole thing accountable. A framework is great and all, but what does this look like in the real world? In this next section, let's get really practical. We're going to zoom in on two of the most critical layers for any organization that's serious about AI: transparency and governance. So let's start with transparency. And look, this isn't just about trying to understand the algorithm itself. It's about having visibility into the entire system. We're talking about the data that was used to train it, the human decisions that were made when it was being designed, the whole shebang. Without that full picture, you have no idea what kinds of problems might be hiding under the hood. And this is a really key distinction to make. We tend to obsess over algorithmic transparency, trying to crack open the black box. But honestly, systemic transparency is often way more important. Knowing what data went into the model is fundamental. Because if your data is biased, I don't care how explainable your algorithm is, it's still going to give you a biased result. Garbage in, garbage out.
Okay, so this brings us to AI governance. And this is really where the rubber meets the road. It's the controls, the processes, the rules that actually hold an organization and its people accountable for the AI they build. It makes all the other layers work. So what happens when governance is weak or just plain missing?
Well, you basically swing the door wide open for all kinds of threats. The most obvious one is malicious AI. This is when people intentionally use AI for bad things. Think automated cyber attacks or huge disinformation campaigns. This is the straight-up, intentional weaponization of AI. But the attacks can be way sneakier than that. Take adversarial attacks. This stuff is both fascinating and terrifying. You can make tiny, practically invisible changes to something, a few pixels in an image, for example, that will completely trick an AI model into seeing the wrong thing. It's a massive security hole that good governance has to protect against.
And then, of course, there's the one that messes with our whole perception of reality, deep fakes, using AI to create super realistic but totally fake video and audio. This is a direct assault on our ability to trust what we see and hear, and it has some pretty profound implications for all of us.
Now, this quote might sound a little extreme, but it really gets the stakes, right? When AI can fake reality so convincingly that you can't tell the difference, the whole concept of digital trust just starts to fall apart. And this is precisely why governance and transparency aren't just nice-to-haves, they're absolutely essential.
But not all failures of governance are quite so sinister. Sometimes they're just, well, deceptive. Let's talk about pseudo-AI. This is when a company claims they've got some amazing, sophisticated AI doing a job, but really, behind the curtain, it's just a bunch of people doing the work manually. It's a complete failure of transparency.
This quote just perfectly captures how absurd the whole thing is. It's a really bad look for a company. It shatters customer trust, and it just shows you're putting marketing hype ahead of reality. If you need people in the loop, that's fine. Just be transparent about it and design a system that augments them properly.
And make no mistake, all these ideas we're talking about, they are quickly moving from theory into actual law. Governments all over the world are rolling out regulations, from GDPR and the EU AI Act over in Europe to things like the CCPA in California. Being good at governance isn't just an ethical choice anymore, it's fast becoming a legal requirement. So, this brings us to our final section. We've defined the problem, we've got a framework for trust, and we can see the stakes are incredibly high. So what do we do now? How do we actively shape the future we want with AI?
When you boil it all down, this comes back to people. Technology is just a tool. Our values have to be the things that guide how we use it. That means keeping humans in the loop for important decisions. It means focusing on making workers better, not just replacing them. I love this phrase. It's about taking the robot out of the human. And it means making sure we involve everyone who's affected by this transformation from the very beginning.
And that really leaves us with this final question for you to think about. This transformation isn't something that's just happening to us. It's something that we are all building right now. The ultimate success of AI won't be measured by its speed or its power, but by how well it empowers people. So the question is, how will you bring your people along for the ride?